The great hall was silent. 10,000 aliens from across the galaxy sat in their seats and watched as the Veil High Council prepared to speak. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. This was the heart of the Galactic Union, and today it would break apart. Una stood alone on the speaker's platform. She was small compared to the Veil who surrounded her. They were tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. Their eyes had no pupils, just endless pools of gold. They looked down at her like she was an insect. She was the last human ambassador. In a few minutes, she would also be the first human exile. Primus Orith rose from his throne. He was the oldest Veil alive, nearly 3,000 years old. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "The Galactic Union has reached a decision," he said. "Humanity is expelled. You have 1 year to leave our space. After that, any human found within Union borders will be executed." The crowd did not cheer. They did not boo. They simply watched. Because they had known this was coming for a long time, Una felt her heart beating fast, but she kept her face calm. She had practiced this moment in front of a mirror for weeks. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "Ah, may I speak?" she asked. Orith waved one of his 4 hands. "You may. It will change nothing." Una looked out at the crowd. She saw the Norith in their section, massive warriors with thick green scales and teeth like knives. She saw the Kellen, small and pale with huge black eyes, their fingers always twitching as they calculated something in their heads. She saw dozens of other species, all of them older than humanity, all of them watching her. 200 years ago, she said, my species had not yet left our home planet. We were young. We were small. We knew nothing of the stars. When the Union found us, you called us primitives. You laughed at our simple ships and our simple tools, but you let us join because you needed workers. You needed hands to do the jobs no one else wanted to do. She paused. The hall was completely silent. We worked, she continued. We built your stations. We fixed your ships. We healed your sick. We fought your wars. We did everything you asked, and we did it well. Too well, perhaps, because now you look at us and you are afraid. Orith's golden eyes narrowed. We fear nothing. Then why expel us? Una asked. Is it because humans now hold positions in every major industry? Is it because our population has grown while yours has stayed the same? Is it because your children learn our music and eat our food and speak our languages? Enough, Orith said. His voice was cold. We do not need to explain ourselves to you. The decision is made, Una nodded slowly. Then I will say only this. You will regret this day. Not because we will seek revenge. We won't. But because you have forgotten something important. You have forgotten why you needed us in the first place. She turned and walked off the platform. The crowd watched in silence as she leapt through the massive doors. She did not look back. Far across the station, Tai-Ho was packing his tools. He had worked as the chief engineer of the Union's infrastructure division for 30 years. His hands had built things that would last for centuries. Now, he was putting everything into boxes. His Kellen assistant, a young one named Vel, watched him with sad eyes. I don't understand, Vel said. You are the best engineer we have. No one else knows these systems like you do? Tai-Ho smiled, but there was no happiness in it. That's exactly why they want me gone. I know too much. I'm too important. It scares them. He pulled a thick book from his desk. It was full of handwritten notes, diagrams, and solutions to problems that had never been officially recorded. Years of knowledge written down by hand because he knew this day might come. Here, he said, handing it to Vel. This is everything I know. Every trick, every shortcut, every fix that isn't in the official manuals. Take care of it. Vel looked at the book like it was made of gold. I will study it every day. Don't just study it, Tai-Ho said. Understand it. Learn to think like I think. Because if you just follow the steps without understanding why, you will fail when something unexpected happens. Vel nodded, but Tai-Ho could see the confusion in those big black eyes. The Kellen were brilliant at following procedures. They could memorize entire libraries. But thinking differently, solving new problems, creating something from nothing that was not their strength. That was humanity's strength. And soon, the Union would have none left. On the other side of the station, Doyen sat in a dark room with General Vecca of the North Military. Vecca was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales the color of dark emeralds. But right now, he looked small. He looked afraid. "Your strategists have won every battle for the last 50 years, Vecca said quietly. "Every victory we have claimed, a human planned it. What will we do without you?" Doyen poured 2 glasses of something strong. "You will do what you did before we came. You will fight with honor and strength. Before you came, we lost as many battles as we won," Vecca admitted. "Our tactical schools closed 3 generations ago. We forgot how to think about war. We just followed your plans, then opened the schools again. Learn to think for yourselves." Vecca shook his massive head. "It takes generations to build such knowledge. We don't have that time." Doyen drank his glass in one long swallow. He felt sorry for Vecca. The general was a good being, honest and loyal. But he was also a product of a system that had grown lazy. They all were. 6 months later, the last human ship left Union space. 1.7 billion people, carrying everything they could. Behind them, the Veil celebrated what they called the purification. They drank and sang, and told each other that the future was bright. They had no idea what was coming. The water stopped on a Tuesday, on Kellen Prime. The great recycling plant that served 300 million people simply stopped working. The pumps made strange sounds. The filters clogged with something no one could identify. The engineers ran back and forth, checking their manuals, following every procedure exactly as written. Nothing worked. Vel stood in the control room, holding Taiho's handwritten book. His hands were shaking. He had read the book many times, but reading was not the same as understanding. The words on the pages described what to do, but they did not explain why. And without the why, Vel was lost. "The backup systems," another engineer said. "We should activate the backup systems." "The backup systems are also failing," Vel replied. "They share the same design. Whatever is wrong affects them all. Then we must submit a request to the Union Engineering Council." "They will send experts," Vel wanted to scream. The Union Engineering Council would take 6 months to process the request. Another 3 months to send someone? And that someone would probably know less than Vel did. Because the best engineers had all been human. 3 million Kellen died before the water flowed again. History would call it the first failure. It would not be the last. Far away, at the edge of the galaxy, Yuna watched the news with tired eyes. The human exile zone was a harsh place, full of dead planets and empty space. But humans were already building. They had no choice. She stood in her small office on the new station called Haven 1. Through the window, she could see construction drones flying in endless patterns, adding new sections to the growing structure. In just 18 months, they had built more than the Union had built in 50 years. "They're dying," she said quietly, "and they still won't ask for help." Doyen entered the room. He looked older now, more gray in his hair. The stress of exile had aged them all. "They're too proud," he said. The Veil would rather watch their Union burn than admit they made a mistake. And the Kellen? The North. The smaller species? The Kellen are following procedures that don't work. The North just lost an entire fleet. Yuna turned sharply. "What?" Doyen sat down heavily. The Riven Swarm attacked their border stations. Without human strategists, the North used standard formations from their old textbooks. The same textbooks the Riven have been studying for centuries. The enemy knew every move before it happened. How many dead? 40,000. Maybe more. Yuna closed her eyes. She remembered General Vecca, the fear in his voice when he spoke to Doyen before the expulsion. He had known this would happen. They had all known. On a distant world, Hana packed her laboratory for the journey to the exile zone. She had been one of the last humans to leave. given special permission to finish her research on a new plague affecting the outer colonies. But now her time was up. Her Vale colleague, a scientist named Thesa, watched her with something like sadness. "Your notes," Thesa said. "They are complete?" Hannah nodded. "Everything is documented. Every experiment, every result, every theory. But the intuitive leaps, the moments when you saw patterns no one else could see, how do we document those?" Hannah had no answer. How do you teach someone to think in new ways? How do you explain the feeling you get when you know an answer is right, even before you can prove it? "You'll figure it out," Hannah said, though she did not believe it. 6 months after Hannah left, the plague spread to 12 more worlds. Thesa followed the notes exactly, tried every approach Hannah had suggested. Nothing worked. The disease changed, adapted, became something new, and the Vale scientists, for all their knowledge, could not adapt with it. Deep in Union space, Minho sat in a dirty bar on a station that had seen better days. He was the only human for 1,000 light years. His forged identity papers said he was a Kellen-human hybrid, rare but not impossible. So far, no one had looked too closely. He watched the news screens above the bar. They showed Primus Oreth giving a speech about temporary difficulties and the strength of the Union. The aliens around him watched with empty eyes. They had stopped believing the speeches long ago. A North soldier sat down next to Minho. He was young, barely old enough to fight. There was a fresh scar across his face. "You're not from around here," the soldier said. Myth kept his voice calm. "I'm from the outer systems. Just passing through. Everyone's just passing through these days. Going somewhere safer." The soldier laughed bitterly. "If anywhere is safe anymore, what happened to your face?" The soldier touched his scar. "Riven attack. My whole unit was destroyed. I only survived because I got knocked unconscious and they thought I was dead. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I used to hate humans, you know. My father always said you were weak, too soft for real war. But now I think maybe you were the only thing holding us together." Minho said nothing. He finished his drink and left the bar. That night, he sent a coded message back to the exile zone. "They're starting to understand," he wrote. "But understanding won't save them. The cracks are too deep. The system is too broken. They built their civilization on our backs, and now that we're gone, they're falling. I don't know if anything can stop it." Yuna read the message in her office. Outside her window, Haven Wan was now a city of lights, home to 50 million humans. They had running water, clean air, good food. They had built it themselves, with their own hands. In less than 2 years, she looked at the distant stars, toward Union space, and wondered how many would die before this was over. She wondered if she could have done something different, said something different, to change the outcome. But deep down, she knew the truth. The Union had planted the seeds of its own destruction long before she was born. Humanity had just been the water and sunlight keeping the dying tree alive. Now the water was gone, and the tree was finally falling. All they could do was wait and watch. The hyperspace beacons went dark on the same day across 1,000 systems. These beacons had guided ships through the void for 10,000 years. They were the veins of the Union, carrying trade and travel and communication from one end of the galaxy to the other. Without them, ships were blind. Without them, worlds were alone. The Kellen scientists who had improved the beacon network gathered in emergency meetings. They studied their modifications, their upgrades, their perfect mathematical enhancements. Everything looked correct on paper. Everything should have worked, but the original beacons had been designed by human engineers. And those engineers had built in something the Kellen never understood: flexibility. The beacons were meant to adapt, to change, to fix themselves when something went wrong. The Kellen improvements had removed this feature. They had called it inefficient. Now 1,000 worlds paid the price for that efficiency. Trade ships drifted in empty space, their navigation systems useless. Food rotted in cargo holds while colonies starved. Emergency calls went unanswered because no one could hear them. The great machine of the Union was breaking apart, one piece at a time. On Vale Prime, Primus Oreth faced a council in open revolt. "This is your fault," the North representative shouted, his green scales dark with rage. You drove out the humans. You broke what they built. And now my people die, while you make speeches about purity. The North have always been quick to blame others, Orth replied coldly. Perhaps if your warriors were better trained, our warriors followed your orders. They used the strategies your union approved. The strategies that worked only because humans designed them. The Kellen representative spoke next, her voice high and thin. 30 million of my people are dead. Plagues, starvation, infrastructure collapse. We demand reparations. Reparations. Arath laughed, but there was no humor in it. From whom? We are all suffering. Then we demand the humans return. The chamber went silent. No one had said it out loud before. No one had been willing to admit what everyone was thinking. Orith's golden eyes blazed. Never. We will never crawl back to those primitives. Then the Union will die, the Kellen said simply, and we will die with it. Far from Vale Prime, a small Kellen ship crossed into human space. It carried 3 diplomats and a message for Una. She met them in a conference room on Haven 3. They looked thin and tired. Their clothes were worn. Once Kellen diplomats had dressed in fabrics worth more than a human worker earned in a year. Now they wore whatever they could find. We come with an offer, the lead diplomat said. His name was Pell, and his hands would not stop shaking. Return to Union space. Help us rebuild. In exchange, full citizenship, formal apologies, and reparations for your suffering. Una listened in silence. When Pell finished, she spoke carefully. 4 years ago, your council called us genetic mistakes, cultural contamination, a disease to be removed. Now you want us to save you, Pell admitted. We were wrong. We are sorry. Are you? Or are you just afraid? Pell had no answer. Una brought the offer to the Confederation Assembly. The Great Hall on Haven 1 was packed with human representatives from every colony. They listened as she explained the Kellen proposal. Taiho was the first to speak against it. They didn't want our help, he said, his voice hard. They wanted our labor, without our presence. They wanted what we could do, not who we are. If we go back now, we go back as tools. They'll use us until the crisis passes, then throw us away again. We'll never be able to throw us away again, someone argued. This time, they know what happens without us. It's not the point. Taiho shook his head. The point is respect. They never respected us. They only needed us. Those are not the same thing, Hannah stood to speak. Her time in exile had been spent building hospitals, treating the first refugees who had begun trickling across the border. There are billions of innocent people in Union space, she said. Children who had no say in the expulsion. Ordinary workers who just want to live their lives. Do we let them die because their leaders were cruel? We didn't kill them, Taiho replied. Their leaders did. Let their leaders save them. Their leaders can't. That's why they're asking us. The debate went on for hours. Voices rose and fell. Old wounds were opened and examined. Finally, Doyen asked for silence. I have studied this situation from every angle, he said. Militarily, economically, politically. Here is what I know. He pressed a button, and maps appeared in the air. Maps of Union space, covered in red marks showing failures, conflicts, disasters. The Union is dying. Not slowly, but quickly. Within 5 years, it will cease to exist. The question is not whether we can save it. The question is what comes after. What do you mean? Una asked. If we return now, we return as saviors. We will hold all the power. The Union will become dependent on us in ways that can never be undone. We will essentially rule the galaxy. Doyen paused. Is that what we want? Is that burden something we're willing to carry? The room was silent. There is another option, Doyen continued. We wait. We let the Union fall. We accept refugees. We build our own civilization, strong and independent. And when the dust settles, we help rebuild not as saviors, but as equals. How many will die if we wait? Hannah asked quietly. Doyen's face was grim. Billions. Maybe more. Una felt the weight of the decision crushing her. There was no good choice. Only terrible ones. The Assembly voted that night. They would wait. They would not return to save the Union, but they would open their borders to refugees any species, any number. They would build shelters and hospitals and schools. They would prepare for the flood of desperate people who would soon come running. It was not mercy. It was not revenge. It was simply survival. Una sent Pell home with the answer. He wept when he heard it. "You could save us," he said. "You have the power." "Yes," Una replied. "But power is not the same as duty. You made your choice 4 years ago. Now you must live with it." She watched his ship disappear into the dark, carrying the last hope of the Union back into the dying light. Primus Orith died on a cold morning, killed by his own guard. The assassin was young, barely 100 years old by Vale standards. When they captured him, he did not run. He did not fight. He simply said, "He killed our future. I killed him. Now we are even." The news spread slowly through the broken communication networks. On some worlds, people celebrated. On others, they wept. On most, they simply shrugged and went back to the business of survival. Orith had been a symbol of the old Union. Now the old Union was truly dead. The official dissolution came 3 days later. A short message, broadcast on whatever channels still worked, announced that the Galactic Union no longer existed. Each species was now responsible for itself. The great experiment of 10,000 years was over. Civil war followed. It was not one war, but hundreds, thousands, a galaxy tearing itself apart. The North split into factions, each warlord claiming to be the true heir of their warrior tradition. The Kellans sealed their borders and activated ancient defense systems, shooting down any ship that came too close. Smaller species fought each other over scraps of territory, scraps of food, scraps of hope. Minho ran through a burning station, his forged identity papers long since destroyed. It no longer mattered who he pretended to be. In the chaos, everyone was just trying to survive. Behind him, explosions shook the walls. Somewhere, 2 North factions were fighting over control of the station's remaining supplies. Minho did not care who won. He only cared about reaching his ship. A scream stopped him. He turned and saw a child, a Vale girl, huddled in a corner. She was small, maybe 5 or 6 in human years. Her silver skin was covered in dust and dried blood. Her golden eyes were wide with terror. Minho knew he should keep running. Every second mattered. His ship was waiting. His people were waiting. He had valuable information, maps of the collapse, names of surviving leaders. He was important. But the child was crying, and something in his chest broke. He ran to her and knelt down. Hey, look at me! "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Where are your parents?" She pointed down the corridor where a section of the ceiling had collapsed. Minho understood. She was alone now. "Okay," he said, and he surprised himself with how calm his voice sounded. "Okay, you're coming with me. What's your name?" "Sora," she whispered. "That's a pretty name." "I'm Minho. Hold my hand and don't let go, okay?" She grabbed his hand with all her strength. Together, they ran through the burning station, dodging debris and gunfire until they reached the hangar. Minho's ship was the last one left, a small cargo vessel that had seen better days. They launched just as the station's reactor went critical. Behind them, the whole structure dissolved into fire and light. Sora pressed her face against the window and watched her home die. "I'm sorry," Minho said. She didn't answer. She just kept watching until there was nothing left to see. The refugee ships came by the thousands. Una stood on the observation deck of Haven 7 and watched them arrive. An endless stream of lights against the dark, each one carrying hundreds or thousands of desperate beings. They came from every corner of former Union space. Vale and Norith and Kellen and species she had never seen before. They came with nothing but the clothes on their bodies and the fear in their eyes. "We don't have enough room," her assistant said. "We don't have enough food. We don't have enough medicine. Then we build more room. We grow more food. We make more medicine." Yuna's voice was tired but steady. We don't turn them away. Some people are saying we should. They're saying these aliens treated us badly. They're saying we owe them nothing. Oh. Yuna turned to face him. If we become like them, if we judge innocent people for the sins of their leaders, then what was the point of surviving? What was the point of building all this? She gestured at the station around them. Haven 7 was the largest structure humans had ever built. It could house 20 million people. By next month, it would need to house 50 million. We show them who we are, Yuna said. We show them that humanity is better than revenge. Taiho worked without rest. His hands were blistered and bleeding, but he didn't stop. There were power systems to install, water recyclers to build, air purifiers to maintain. The refugee ships kept coming, and the stations kept growing. And there was always more work to do. A young Kellen engineer worked beside him. Her name was Detta, and she had arrived on one of the first refugee ships. She had been a junior technician on Kellen Prime. One of the few who had actually tried to understand Taiho's handwritten notes. You work differently than we do, she said one night during a brief rest. You don't follow the procedures. Procedures are guides, not laws, Taiho replied. When the situation changes, you change with it. That is terrifying. Taiho laughed, and it felt good to laugh. That's what makes it work. Fear keeps you careful. Creativity keeps you alive. Detta thought about this for a long time. Then she picked up her tools and went back to work. Hannah's medical bay was never empty. She treated burns and infections, malnutrition, and radiation sickness. She held the hands of dying patients and comforted crying children. She worked until she collapsed. Slept for a few hours, then started again. One day, Minho arrived with Sora. The girl was healthy but silent. Her eyes still haunted by what she had seen. She won't talk, Minho said. Not since we left the station. Hannah knelt down to meet Sora's eyes. That's okay. You don't have to talk. You just have to heal. Sora looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched Hannah's face. Her small fingers traced the lines of exhaustion around Hannah's eyes. You're tired, Sora said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Hannah smiled despite everything. Yes, but tired is okay. Tired means I'm still fighting. That night, Sora slept in Hannah's quarters. It was the first time she had slept without nightmares. Doyen stood at the border, watching his defense grid. The sensors showed movement in former Union space. North warlords probing for weakness, desperate factions looking for new territory to conquer so far. He had turned them all back without firing a shot. The Human Confederation's defenses were too strong, too advanced. The warlords were using old strategies, old ships, old thinking. They had no chance. But Doyen took no pleasure in this. Every ship he turned away was full of beings who had nowhere else to go. Every warlord he defeated left behind chaos that would claim more innocent lives. A communication came through, cryptid and faint. It was from deep inside former Union space, from a group of surviving Veil leaders. They were requesting terms of surrender. Doyen read the message 3 times. Then he forwarded it to Yuna. What should we do? He asked. She read it in silence. When she looked up, her eyes were hard and sad at the same time. We accept, she said. But not as conquerors. As partners. The old way is dead. It's time to build something new. Doyen nodded. For the first time in 7 years, he felt something like hope. 10 years after the expulsion, Yuna returned to Veil Prime. She had left as an exile. She returned as the first chancellor of the new Galactic Compact. The ship that carried her was escorted by vessels from every species. A fleet of former enemies, now flying together under a shared flag. The great hall where she had stood alone was different now. The living crystal walls still glowed, but the light was warmer, softer. The seats were filled not just with one species per section, but with mixed groups, aliens and humans sitting side by side. Chancellor Yuna, the speaker announced. Please address the assembly. She walked to the platform. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, her face lined with years of hard work, but her voice was as strong as ever. 10 years ago, I stood in this hall and warned you that you would regret your decision. I was right. But I take no pleasure in being right. Too many died. Too much was lost. The galaxy will carry the scars of those years forever." She paused, looking out at the faces watching her. Vale and North and Kellen and Human, all mixed together, all waiting. But scars heal. And today, we begin the healing in earnest. The Galactic Compact is not a new union. The old union failed because it was built on hierarchy, on the belief that some species were superior to others. The Compact is built on a different foundation: equality, respect, and the understanding that we are stronger together than apart. She held up a small book. It was old and worn, the pages filled with handwritten notes. This book was written by Taiho, our chief engineer, before the expulsion. It contains knowledge he tried to share with the Union. They never read it. They never understood it. They thought they were too advanced to learn from humans. She opened the book to a page marked with a ribbon. On this page, Taiho wrote something I think about every day. He wrote, "The secret is not knowing everything. The secret is knowing that you don't know everything, and being willing to learn." That is the philosophy we bring to the Compact. Not arrogance, but humility. Not domination, but cooperation. Applause filled the hall. Not polite applause, but genuine, heartfelt celebration across the galaxy. Taiho led his reconstruction corps through the ruins of Kellen Prime. The great cities were mostly destroyed, but here and there, lights were coming back on. Water was flowing again. People were surviving. Detta walked beside him, now his second in command. She had learned to think like a human, to adapt and improvise and create. She was teaching other Kellen to do the same. "It will take generations to rebuild," she said. "Yes," Taiho agreed, "but we'll do it together. That's what matters." A young Kellen engineer ran up to them, excited. "We found the old records. The original designs from before the expulsion. We can use them as templates." Taiho shook his head. "Use them as starting points, not templates. We're not rebuilding the old world. We're building a better one." "Ah!" The young engineer looked confused, but Detta smiled. "It's Klein," she said. "Come, let me show you what adaptation means." Hannah's Institute of Cross-Species Medicine had become the most important medical facility in the galaxy. Doctors from every species studied there, learning to treat patients they had never encountered before. The plague that had killed millions was now curable. Thanks. 2. Collaboration between Vale researchers and human innovators. She stood in her office, reading a report on the latest breakthrough. A young North medical student had developed a new treatment for radiation sickness, combining traditional North healing techniques with human technology. It was something neither species could have created alone. There was a knock at her door. Sora entered, now a young woman, tall and graceful, with silver skin that caught the light. "Dr. Hannah," Sora said formally. Then she smiled. "I mean, Aunt Hannah." Hannah laughed and hugged her. "You don't have to call me that anymore. You're an adult now." "I know. But I want to." Sora's golden eyes were warm with affection. "You saved my life. You and Minho, I never forget that. How is your father? Busy as always?" "He's running trading routes between human and North space. He says business has never been better. And your studies?" Sora's smile grew wider. "I've been accepted into the diplomatic academy. Yuna herself wrote my recommendation." Hannah felt tears in her eyes. The little girl who had lost everything, who had watched her world burn, was now going to help build the peace between species. "Your parents would be proud," Hannah said. "I know," Sora replied. "But I had new parents to raise me, and they were pretty good too." Doyan inspected his troops on Haven Station. The Compact Defense Force was the first truly integrated military in galactic history. North warriors stood beside human soldiers. Kellen technicians worked with Vale strategists. They wore the same uniform, swore the same oath, served the same cause. A young North officer approached and saluted. "Hi, Marshal. The training exercise is ready to begin." "Thank you, Lieutenant. Let's see what they can do." The exercise was complex, designed to test cooperation between species. The teams faced simulated enemies, unexpected challenges, impossible situations, and they adapted. They improvised. They won. Afterward, Doyen addressed the assembled troops. "When I was young," he said, "I was told that different species could never truly work together, that our differences were too great, our histories too bloody. But look at you. North and human fighting side by side. Kellen and Vale planning together. You have proven that the old thinking was wrong." He looked at each face, alien and human alike. "We are not strong because we are the same. We are strong because we are different. Each of you brings something unique. Each of you makes us better. Remember that. Always remember that." The troops cheered, and the sound echoed through the station like a promise. The memorial on Vale. Prime was unveiled on the 10th anniversary of the expulsion. It stood in the great plaza before the assembly hall, a massive sculpture of hands reaching toward each other. Vale hands, and North hands, and Kellen hands, and human hands, all grasping, all connected. Una gave the dedication speech. The plaza was filled with beings from every species, come to witness this moment of healing. "They thought they were casting out a weakness," she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "They did not understand that what they called weakness, our adaptability, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept impossible, was the very thing holding them together." She looked at the sculpture, at the hands frozen in eternal connection. "We do not return as conquerors. We return as partners. We have learned something important in our years of exile. We have learned that no species can survive alone. We have learned that our differences are not obstacles but gifts. We have learned that the future belongs to everyone, or it belongs to no one." She turned back to the crowd. "This memorial is not about blame. It is not about shame. It is about remembering what happens when we forget our connection to each other. And it is about promising that we will never forget again." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause began. It started with the humans, but it spread quickly to the North, to the Kellen, to the Vale, to every species in the plaza. The sound grew and grew until it was like thunder, like a storm, like the heartbeat of a galaxy finally learning to live. Una stepped down from the platform. Taiho was waiting, and Hannah and Doyun and Minho with Sora beside him. Her family, not of blood but of struggle. The people who had walked through fire with her. "We did it," Minho said. "We actually did it," Una replied. "We're just beginning. The real work starts now." She looked up at the memorial, at the hands reaching toward hope. "But for the first time," she said softly, "I believe we can finish it." Around her, the galaxy stretched out in all directions, full of challenges and possibilities and futures yet to be written, and humanity, once expelled and forgotten, stood at the center of it all, not as rulers, but as partners in the greatest project the universe had ever known, the rebuilding of everything.